There have always been women creating change. Bold leaders who weren't always welcome.
It's been difficult for us to be heard.
I am aware of all the women who are still in silence.
From our beginning, Vital Voices recognized the need for women leaders to be heard, from community meetings to the highest seats of power. For more than 2 decades, we've searched the world for those leaders. We've partnered with 18,000 of them to build the skills and networks they need to soar. We've learned women lead differently, using their power to empower others, not themselves. And that difference is precisely what is needed now, more than ever. The world faces extraordinary challenge. But there are women leaders who walk among us with bold and innovative solutions, waiting for their moment. Now is the time to stand up. Be fearless in the face of those who say you can't. Be daring and unconventional because you can. Take a bold step to create the world you want to live in. At Vital Voices, we celebrate women leaders who dare to challenge the status quo. Together, we will solve the world's greatest challenges with bold ideas and bold action. Join us.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kate James, Chair of the Vital Voices Board. And this is a great audience. And I'm delighted to welcome you all officially to the Vital Voices Global Headquarters for Women's Leadership. That sounds great. And I want to thank you all for coming to hear the first of what will be many conversations in this incredible and still evolving space. Over the next 3 days, you'll hear from some brilliant thinkers, some courageous activists, talking about some of the world's most pressing issues, from climate justice to the crises in Ukraine and Afghanistan. And we'll also have the opportunity to learn about some of the amazing work the Vital Voices team with the global network of women and partners are doing around the world, bringing ingenious approaches to some of the most enduring problems, from domestic violence to economic inequality. You know, I'm incredibly proud to have been involved with Vital Voices now for more than 10 years, and I was thrilled in late 2019 to take on the board chair. In retrospect, my timing might have been a little bit off. Because as you all know, the end of 2019, the world changed. This could have been a catastrophic moment for Vital Voices, no doubt. It could have been a stop on our programming, on our support, and most importantly, on our ambition. But actually, thanks to the amazing team at Vital Voices, it was quite the opposite. While others moved backwards, we moved forward. We increased our programmatic offering, responding to new and emerging needs. We increased our emergency funding and forged new partnerships in terms of crisis response. Vital Voices really is an extraordinary organisation. And not only, and this makes me incredibly proud, did the team adopt its new business model to ensure that it could work during COVID, but also during that incredibly difficult time, they stepped back and they worked on their culture. And to this day, continue to do so, to increase our diversity and inclusion, to set us up for success, but most importantly, to make us a better organisation. Vital Voices, and this is what I love about it, is relentless in the pursuit of creating a gender-equal world. We look all the time for new ways, new approaches to improve the impact and reach of our model, investing in the catalysts the catalysts that bring about change, that bring about positive program, investing, of course, in women leaders. And you know, all of that work would not be possible without partnership. Look around you today. This amazing building is proof indeed that partnership is what matters. And before I hand over, I wanted to just take a moment to thank the incredible group of dedicated partners who right from the get-go were brave enough to believe in the amazing vision for this organisation and to provide it with the support that was so needed. And also, of course, to thank, and many of you are here today, the incredible board for their dedicated service, but most of all, just for your passionate advocacy and for the fact that you never, ever stop believing. Thank you. And I also want to acknowledge my predecessors, to thank Beth Brooke-Marcianac, to thank Susan Davis, to thank, of course, Milan Verveer, the amazing Milan Verveer, to thank Mary Yerrick, and of course Donna McClarty, who is still so much a part of the board and so active today. Thank you. But most of all, just an incredible thank you to the Vital Voices team, who are truly amazing, incredibly hardworking, and best of all, endlessly cheery and absolutely indefatigable. A massive thank you. And of course, last but not least, and I have my great pleasure to introduce our inspirational leader, who I have the honour to work with week in, week out. Elise is our president, our chief executive officer, co-founder, and all-round superwoman.
Of course, I have the privilege of working with this phenomenal woman, Kate James, so thank you. So I'm going to get this party started with our very first panel. Please welcome back to this stage for the very first discussion in our new Global Embassy for Women Leaders, iconic fashion designer, philanthropist, Diane von Furstenberg. The great and heroic former, but actually not so former, presidential candidate in Cameroon, head of the People's Party, Kawala. Human rights leader and newly minted extraordinary tech CEO, founder and CEO of Moss, Amira Yayawi. And finally, the woman who inspired it all, Secretary Hillary Clinton. All right. So, Secretary Clinton, we're of course going to start with you right off the bat. We're obviously in the midst of really a time of extraordinary upheaval. We've had a global pandemic. We know that it did not help promote or advance women and girls. It disproportionately set women back to the tune of what the World Economic Forum says, an entire generation of progress. But I feel as though both you and I have something in common, and that is that we see the challenges, but we see the opportunities. And I wonder, even in this time of difficulty and setback, the world is also seeing how women do lead differently, and that difference is needed. So where do you see the opportunity? How do we take the challenges of what we've seen over the last 2 years and shift them to leapfrog forward?
Well, Elise, I think that you're right, that in any time of great challenge and apparent setbacks, you have to be willing to find that light and that opportunity to continue to advocate for, create change, and support others who are doing so. So in an ironic way, certainly not, I'm sure, intended, I think the events in our own country of the last week, certainly the impact of the pandemic on women and girls, which was disproportionate, the horrific attack by Putin's Russia on a neighboring country, and the impact that that's had on so many lives and those of us who are trying to be supportive, is a call to action. And that, to me, is something that we have to be not only aware of, but figure out how best to take advantage. And it's thrilling for me after 25 years to be here in this building and to know the stories of the thousands of women who have been impacted by Vital Voices, by the programming in every walk of life, and know that many of them overcame terrible odds, had every reason to give up or give in, and did not. And so one thing that Vital Voices itself can do is to keep all the rest of us going too. And I think that is a huge gift. So, yes, let's, my great friend Madeleine Albright had this line when people would say, well, how would you describe yourself? She'd say, I'm an optimist who worries a lot. So I think we should all be optimists who worry and then get to work. And that's what I see the opportunity as.
Yeah, thank you. And it's so true, Vital Voices was started in so many ways by powerful women like you who gave voice and power to other women who maybe didn't have as strong a voice. But I think what we've seen over the past 25 years of doing this work is that the women we work with are deeply powerful. They may not have necessarily formal power, but they are having massive impact around the globe. And Ka, you and I talk a lot about power because I think for so long I would hear women say again and again, I don't want power because, it corrupts, it's dirty. I don't want power. I want to have impact. I want to change lives. And I know you tell women, no, we need power. We need to redefine it.
Yes, absolutely. First, it's just such a tremendous moment to be here. Yes, this is so amazing. And absolutely, I think in this moment, especially, where our world is really shaken to the core in terms of the principles and values that we feel like we had in common, which are really being put to the test, we as women have to step into power. We have a lot of informal power. In fact, we use our power to pick up the slack where governments fail. That is the reality. I'm an African woman. In Africa, the women are doing healthcare, they are taking care of the children, they are picking up that economy in situations where governments have utterly failed. That is good, and we have learned a lot, and we've become very powerful through that process, but we must step into formal power, because that is what makes the difference for the millions of women around the world. And I think in this moment, let's not sit on resilience. We're very resilient as women, and resilience is fantastic. However, we have to be careful with it, that we don't sit in a place where we're allowing governments, people who rule the world, to be slack, and then we pick up their slack. No. We must get into power and do it right. And we cannot trust the people who have built the current power infrastructure to transform it. These women here need to step in and transform it. And Elise, you know that to me, I work every day to become the president of Cameroon, and that will happen. But it also means stepping into space at the World Bank, at the IMF, not just as women, not just to have a woman there, but to transform it. When I was coming here, I held a meeting with 15 Cameroonian women who do amazing work on the ground. And I said, I'm going to Washington. What do you want me to say? And their message was very clear. We need to put the human being back at the center of power. And that is what we do as Vital Voices women. And we need to step into these institutions. The world is redefining itself now. Let's not sit back. Let's not wait for an invitation. Let's step into the conversation to transform power.
Diane, I feel like knowing the mother that you came from, you had no choice but to be a powerful woman. And in so many ways, you've redefined power, you've reclaimed power, you've shown that you can be powerful, you can be feminine at the same time, right? And that women do lead differently, and that's completely fine. And actually, the world needs that difference. You've talked about this being your third act. I know there's a fourth and a fifth and a sixth, but okay, your third act. Why have you dedicated so much to women's power? And actually, one of my favorite things about Diane is that every day when she gets up, the first thing she does is she does something good for someone else. She sends an email on someone's behalf, she makes a call. Before she thinks about herself, she does something for someone else. And I know this is true because I know the people she's calling. Sometimes it's me. I know the people she's doing favors for. Often it's me, or women across the network. So Diane, why do you use your power to empower women in particular?
Okay, before I answer, I want to share something with you, because sometimes you wake up and before you actually get up, you really feel like a loser, right? We all feel like losers. Only losers don't feel like losers. And so I will share with you what I do and my trick. And it's a really good one. It's a quote from Honoré de Balzac, who is a French writer. And this is what he said. When you doubt your power, you give power to your doubt. And please remember that, because it really works. And we don't have the time to give power to our doubts. We have to act. We have to show it's not about being equal, because truly, I'm sorry to say that, women are superior. We just pretend we're not. But we are. I mean, there's just no, we can endure so much more. We can, I would like to see men have their period every month. It's like, so we just have to be proud to be who we are. We have to do it in all kinds of ways. We have to remember that the most important thing is to neutralize. You have someone there in front of you, and you know all the negative they think about you. So bring it forward. If you bring it forward, you neutralize it. So we have to use all the tricks that women know have accumulated over the years. But remember, we have to take our power, and we'll all go to her inauguration.
And actually, Ka, I'm sure the first stop when you make your, state visit will be this building to give that big speech.
Absolutely, absolutely. You remember when we were, this building, we've been thinking and talking about it for so long, and I said, one of the reasons it's important for us to have a building is that they should come to us. Welcome to our home.
Oh, wow. Amira, you, even before you were 18, were threatened, surveilled in Tunisia. Your car was tailed. You were even exiled for a while. You went back to Tunisia, and during the Arab Spring, you really leveraged the power of technology very early on to show its benefits, to create transparency, to mobilize people. But now, of course, you're in Silicon Valley, mobilizing in a different way. But talk about that power of technology, because I think all of us probably in this room would agree that we don't, as women, mobilize it as much as we need to.
Yeah. First of all, I'm very emotional being here. Yes. Very, very, very. And I was thinking about Salwa, my fellow awardee, 2012, who was assassinated in Libya for using her power to change Libya. And she's in our hearts, obviously, all of us. And it's just so beautiful to be in this place, because Vital Voices was of incredible support to Salwa. This Vital Voices is not an NGO and a building. I don't respond to that. It is, now I live in Silicon Valley, as you know, and we talk about it at this place where you're supposed to find those outliers and invest in them early and become so rich thanks to that. Vital Voices is that to women in the world. I was nobody when I got that email. I thought it was a spam to get an award. Salwa was nobody, and a lot of us awardees were nobody. And this is the power of this place, that it bets early in people, and that's why I'm today sitting next to Hillary. Let's talk about power. How many of you would disagree with this statement, which is this is a very, very powerful tool? How many of you? Probably very few. Every single device you have in your hands has been an idea of a man and owned by a man. But here's what is more powerful, is when I open it, I probably bet that 99% of the people in this room, the first apps, the apps you use, are all led by men. I do have my app here, so. But that's what you use every day. This is the tool that defines your life. This is the tool that defines our future. This is what helped some horrible people win elections in this country. These are the tools. And I know you know, and everybody here knows, the power of technology. The problem is we're already way too much behind. It's freaky what's going on. We're so behind. This is constitutions and countries. If you look in the history of how democracy has been built by men. And it defined a lot of our rights. Look at us today. I cannot believe we're debating the right to abortion in 2022. It's just absurdly shocking, disgusting. I come from North Africa, come from Tunisia. I have a daughter. And when you're an Arab woman having a daughter with a US passport, you're like, oh my God, at least like she always have this passport to protect her. My daughter has the right to abortion in Tunisia. She doesn't have it here, maybe. It's insane. It's freaky. But this is what's happening with technology, too. Technology is being defined by men. How we talk together, how we govern ourselves on the bigger scale, and the millions, how we move populations today, is being defined only by men. And we're users. And what is it to be a user? It's like we decided to let other people decide for us. So, yes, there was a world and there was a theory for me in my life to, after what I've done in Tunisia, to also run for office. And that is what every single person in my life expected. Still, my mom is like, I cannot believe you did this. Could have said I'm maybe proud. That what I'm doing today is actually harder. And it is harder on the daily. I forget that I can be in the room with so many women, actually. I haven't seen this many women in the 5 years I've been in Silicon Valley, ever, like never. I raise and I will pitch 15 investors, and I will only meet the EAs who are women. I would never, ever, ever. There is something happening in the other coast that needs to be fixed. Women need to invade Silicon Valley. We need to make sure that girls are not just users, but they are builders. And that is a lot of work that needs to happen.
So, Secretary Clinton, coming back to you, you are one of the most brilliant strategists in thinking about the future and women's issues. And I think a lot of people are wondering, okay, what are you going to do next? Particularly after that incredible, incredible dedication at Secretary Albright's memorial. Man, if you saw it, the power, the power that you brought to that stage following two presidents. And I remember sitting there and thinking, one, how proud your co-founder of Vital Voices and incredible partner so early on, Secretary Albright, would have been listening to you talk about her and how you guys got in there and championed women as a foreign policy issue long before it was popular, long before we had the research to say, actually, this is right. But then as I thought more, I thought, what is she going to do next? And I'm sure everybody's wondering that. And of course, I would love for you to lean in even more so to women and girls, because as Amira says, I mean, we've got huge challenges. I mean, did you ever think we would be in this position where the rights your generation and before fought for are being rolled back?
Well, no. Although, let me say, and it goes to what our three other speakers have said, I think it's really important to understand how the deck is stacked against women's progress and against human rights. And it's gotten more sophisticated. And Amir, thank you for talking about technology. Because as someone who has tried to sound the alarm about what technology is doing to us, it's really quite frightening. And as we think about that landscape, the people making the decisions, it's not even, you say men, it's a very small number of men. And they have the same kind of thinking and mindset and worldview, and they are literally determining how we communicate and how we understand, how we think of ourselves, and they are responsible, to go to Diane's great point, of instilling a lot of doubts in us. I mean, you look at what's happening to young people, particularly young women, they are becoming quite impacted by what they see on those phones that they are glued to and what it's doing to their own sense of autonomy and agency and, yes, power. So I think we all, and obviously I include myself, we've just got to get smarter and more creative about how we're going to address the imbalance of power because unfortunately, the imbalance is getting greater. And I'm not, this is a nonpartisan organization. So what I will say applies to the entire world, not just to this country. The forces arrayed against human progress, and particularly women's roles and rights and responsibilities, is really gaining in power, aided and abetted by technology and by a certain kind of autocratic leadership. Dalia, who is here with us, who was the president of her country, Lithuania, for a number... 10 years. 10 years. For 10 years. When I was Secretary of State and I would meet with her, she was so clear-eyed about the threat from Russia. And nobody wanted to hear it. Because we all wanted to believe that, we've made so much progress. It's just impossible to think that one man, one autocrat, would threaten the freedom of the Baltic states or Ukraine or somewhere else. So we have to be hopeful, optimistic, but dead-eyed realistic about what we're up against. And I guess to answer your question, Elise, that is, I feel like, my mission. We have to bring people together, as Vital Voices does, and this and many other settings, to say, okay, women without power are women without their rights, because those rights are so dependent upon who wields power in their societies. And we know what we're up against, and we have to get smarter and better focused about how we're going to take it on. And, this book, if you haven't seen it, I brought it out because it's a beautiful book, and it highlights 100 women. But Amanda Gorman has a poem in the beginning, and I just want to read a little tiny bit of it, Elise, because I think it goes right into what our challenge is. I can't read like Amanda Gorman, however. So, today, everyone's eyes are on us as we rise. Today is the day women are paving the way, speaking our truth to power. In this hour, it is our duty to find the brave beauty in rooting for other women, so they too know we are not victims, we are victors, the greatest predictors of progress. We press for change. That's what I'm going to be doing.
Yes. For those of you who don't know, the phenomenal portrait on the outside of the building is Amanda Gorman, and she's been part of Vital Voices Network for 7 years. And just as we have been proud to watch her rise and rise and rise, we watch so many women rise and rise. And I think what is beautiful about this network is that they always come back. They always look to bring back and support the network and truly use their power to empower. We talk about power, and obviously money is critical. We can't talk about power without talking about money, and we know that so little of it is in the hands of women, whether it be those, Amira, as you talk about, who are, at the decision-making table, decide where they're going to put their money and others' money, or philanthropy, right? I mean, we all know that the world can't move forward if half the population's left behind. You said this 27 some years ago. But yet, so little money is invested in women. We can't solve the, sustainable development goals if women don't have equality. We don't have a chance, right? So, Diane, the way you think about this, and you think about investments. Amira talked about how what we do at Vital Voices, and it's absolutely true, we are venture catalysts, right? We find the brilliant leaders. We don't tell them, here's what you need to do. We basically say, we know and believe in what you're doing already. You see the problems, you see the solutions. We just need to get behind you. And you see that as well, because I think it's so important, Diane, because so many people look and tap heads. You know, they think, okay, you know, how many people did I invest in, right? How many, right? How many, you know, thousands of people did I tap? But it's so much more than that. It's about going deep and supporting leaders for the long run in a holistic way. Is that how you think about it? And how do we convince more people that it's not just one and done, tap ahead? It's not about that. It's not about a mile wide and an inch deep. It's about going deep and supporting these leaders on their journey.
What is your question?
How do we convince?
I'm so impressed that Hillary can read without the glasses. That's all. I mean, that's like overblown. And we are the same age.
Okay, so Diane, well, actually, just say whatever you want.
Okay. Oh, no, I think that, I don't know. I tend to look, listen, when you wake up in the morning and you hear, you know, what's going on, it's so depressing and it's so dark, and yet we have to get up and we have to move on. So how do you do it other than looking in the mirror and say, if I doubt my power, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you know, so I think that there's a lot of, I mean, we have more women prime minister and presidents today than ever before, right? You know, we've had incredible leaders. You know, we miss Mrs. Merkel so badly right now. But there is a lot of, so we have to look at the light and look at the positive. Look at this global network that is these women. I mean, when you say women's leaders, these women are not prime ministers. These women work on their field and they fight against, you know, domestic violence and then they get, you know, they build this incredible refuge for women and then they get acid thrown at them and then they start again and they start again. These women on this network, I mean, the reason I say badass is not just because I want to make people laugh, but because they are. These women are role models. There are a lot of women role models right now. And we just have to give them the voice. We have to use whatever voice we all have. We have to use our voice, our experience, our knowledge, our connections, our resources in order, you know, for making it better. And it's an emergency. Women have to take power. And you don't say it all out like that because you get, you know, but that is what each one of us have to say. And you have generation of little girls now. They don't take, you know, they are way better. So we have to, you know, we just have to look for the positive and just build it and use seduction and use whatever, flatter these men. Just make them feel like they're so big. Who cares? You know, just say, yes, you're so good, you're so inspiring. And meanwhile, you do what you want to do. That is what I want us to do.
Ka, speaking of redefining things for the future, I know that's what you are doing all over Africa and starting with your country, Cameroon.
Yes. What I heard from Diane is that it is an emergency. Women have to get into power. And I think in this moment that we need to go do what so many women in this network are really excellent at: grassroots to global. I think one of the major differences in the way women lead is what I did when I was coming to this event, is that you go to ground. You immediately go to the people that you're supposed to represent, and you say, what do you want? What message do you want? What are the things that you need to be put out front? And I want to speak to this idea of money. The money is definitely out there. There is so much money out there. The question is where we're spending it, as Amira was pointing out. It is who is making the decisions, and how are we allowing them to make the decisions. Last year during COVID, my country, Cameroon, got over $300 million to fight against COVID. My government, which is extremely corrupt, they just, the money just disappeared. While people were dying. Cameroonians were dying because they didn't have masks, people were dying because we didn't have oxygen, and so on. They carried out an audit per the IMF's requirement, and the audit said, we stole the money, basically. Well, Cameroon went back to the IMF, asked for a $600 million loan, and got it. 20 Cameroonian women, we said, this is not happening, not on our watch. We wrote to the IMF and we said, we want you to do 3 things. One, at the time they hadn't published the audit, we said, 1, publish the audit. Number 2, the Cameroon government must tell you what they're going to change in their public finance management system so that money doesn't get stolen. Interesting idea, right? And the third thing we asked them to do is that the people the audit is really clear. It says this person in this ministry took this amount of money and it's gone. All those people are still sitting in their offices today managing money. Now, when we, as Cameroonian women, on the ground, are fighting, and I have been arrested numerous times. I have been water hosed. I have been kidnapped because I'm asking my government to govern properly. And when their ally, because that's what it ends up being, is the IMF with a bottomless pit of money, then I know that we as women have got to step into those power structures and transform them. And so for me, where we are today, aside from our individual projects, is looking at how we build networks. When we did that as 20 Cameroonian women, it was huge, by the way. I mean, Cameroon stopped for a few days because we wrote this letter. We got coverage from Bloomberg, from Financial Times, thank you, Vital Voices. We were really able, and I do believe we shook up the IMF internally as well. And the tremendous thing about this network is that Obiesi Kwesili from Nigeria, who has also run for president, reached out to me and said, Ka, how do we do this for several African countries? So I think that that's where we need to be, is using this individual power that we've all built up, going to grassroots, because we've always, if we want to have a chance, we have to mobilize massively. But it's building the networks across what we've done and reaching into, we cannot be afraid. We cannot be afraid. When we were writing to the IMF, people were like, Really? Like what we wrote, we got a meeting, we were able to talk to them, and the idea is transforming and holding people's feet to the fire, even when they're women, because the IMF is run by women right now. But it is not about the individual who's in power. It is about the type of power that we want, the type of governance. And if we do not do that, I thank Secretary Clinton for bringing out this, the autocrats are forming wonderful alliances. People are asking me, why do you think Russia is becoming so influential in Africa? Because you've been sleeping. Yes. And I don't know if it was your op-ed that I read in The Economist, but I do know that there was a woman leader from the Balkans who wrote what I felt was the best piece after the invasion of Ukraine. And she said, you've been playing footsie with a dictator for a very long time, and this is the price. And what I can say in Africa is that the world has been playing footsie with African dictators for a very long time. And that is why we are where we are. So it's a question of our collective survival. It's a question of all of us, women and men, because it's still just a tiny sliver of men who are making these decisions. It's a question of our collective survival, that we come together and we put the human being, the well-being of human beings, back at the center of global governance, of national governance, of city governance. Otherwise, we're not going to make it.
Wow. Incredible. Well, this discussion could go on all day, absolutely all day. We have run out of time, but Amira, I want to give you the final word in response to all this, in thinking about our global network of 20,000 women impacting the lives and reach of millions more across 184 countries that we've built up. I've always felt like that's the power of this organization. Not actually all of us, it's actually the network. The network is the power. How do we use it in these next 25 years to solve some of these challenges?
Wow, that's a hard question.
In like a minute.
In like a minute, absolutely. One of my favorite books is another French writer. He wrote it, he was 17 years old, Etienne de la Boétie. And the book is Discourse on the Voluntary Servitude. This is a book that I think everybody should read. And basically the book asks the question, how come when you have a million people were shut up in front of one? How? This is the reason why I decided to do everything I've done in my life. Today, Vital Voices have 20,000. The world had 3 billion women. More. This country, with everything that's going on, and I keep coming back to this abortion question because it's not nothing, it's huge. And if this is one, a lot of other cards are going to go down. There is something, a say, which is, if you stop moving forward, you go backwards. For women, if you stop trying to move slowly forward, you run backwards. That's how we are. Going forward is very hard. Going backward for us is very easy because the whole world will push us backwards. So what's up for us, Vital Voices, and larger than Vital Voices? It's a building, true. I think about it as the first embassy for women. And what does that mean? It's a diplomatic thing. It's powerful. It's around the world. It's global. There are 20,000 women in this place. They are just the tip of the iceberg of the billions others. And how do we get to those billions? We get to those billions with two things, with three things. One, believing in it, that we can. And I do, and I heard your speech. We can. We can touch 3 billion people. We do. Two, the tools. The tools are money and technology. Those are the two tools that can get us to that level of impact. And money will follow if we show the impact. And technology, we need to get in. And as you know, Elise, I've been harassing you about this forever. But here it is. I am a human rights activist from Tunisia. That's who I am. That's what I've done in my life. Today, I run a bank. I built a bank. Why I built a bank? Because that is the most powerful thing I can put on your phone. Not because that's where it is. Your power is in your money, and I want to make you have the access to that money built by women. And I think that we at Vital Voices need to make this coming chapter the chapter of scale. 20,000 is amazing. Now our goal is the next billion. That's what I want us to do.
Woohoo! I can't imagine a better first conversation. Thank you.